I'm focused on his spirit cause it keeps me from his fire. The Holy Ghost is with me, so my fear I leave behind. My sins were all diminished when he took that breath and died. And if you think I'ma give up on my God, the devil is a lie. The devil is a lie. The devil is a lie.
Hello, welcome to Black Tea News. I'm your host, Christina Barr, and today we're going to be talking about this story about a detransitioner winning $2 million. This was reported on last week, but we didn't get to it, so I wanted to talk about it today. And actually, there was a report today about how there is a major health organization that came out against transitioning and stuff for surgeries and stuff for minors. So we are still heading in the right direction on this issue, though it is very, very slow coming. But at least we appear to be heading there. So it was a Washington Post reported that the American Society of Plastic Surgeons said doctors should delay gender-related surgeries until age 19, citing insufficient evidence that outweighs benefits outweigh the risk. So again, good direction that we're headed in. Very slow, but we shouldn't have got to this crazy point. But the lawsuits pouring in will absolutely start slowing the pace on a lot of this stuff. Also, want to talk about some more things going on in Minneapolis. Minnesota. People blocking the roads, checking IDs. It's amazing that they think they can do all those things to normal citizens. But ICE doing their job is just fascism. I find it all to be very bizarre. But there's a video circulating around of some people calling a black man a house N-word. And it's just really amazing how tolerant these people are, I guess. It's always an interesting show watching these people. But anyway, before we jump into everything, I want to encourage you guys to go to blacktenews.com, check out different content, website, articles, videos, etc. If you like what I do, please consider leaving a donation on the website because it does cost a stream on my site, all that good stuff. Guys can support it very much to appreciate it and appreciate you guys. And I do want to say I do always say I appreciate you guys every day. But I do appreciate the positive comments that I get often from people. Someone over the weekend, I guess they also follow my older sister. She does like these different church skits and stuff, and they follow her, and they're like, are you Katrina's sister? I'm like, yeah. And she's like, oh my gosh, I love both your content. It's so, and so I get, comments like that from people, and people say they appreciate what I do. And I just wanted to point that out, that I see you, and I do thank you guys for that kind of stuff. Because a lot of times when I point out comments, they might be negative comments, like maybe some kind of racist comment or something. Like today, I was scrolling through TikTok, and someone had liked a comment or something on a video that my sister did a while ago. So it popped back up on my notification. So she did a video on Jesus's color. Well, the first video she did, she was like mocking people who would say Christianity is a white man's religion, and then go on to be like Jesus was black, or like dealing with like those sorts of mentalities that people will have. And then someone in the comments said, oh, what color is bronze? So then she had to go and explain in Revelation, when it mentions that Jesus had feet like bronze, like show what, bronze in the fire looks like. It kind of looks like gold. And it's this like glorified image of Jesus with the booming voice and the sword coming out of his mouth and eyes like fire and things like that. So that's not how he's walking around fresh out of the womb. When he was a baby and, you know, going around with the disciples and stuff, that wouldn't have been that particular sort of form. And she compared it to a form that was like in Daniel, of another like kind of angelic figure description and stuff. And so someone had called her a coon. Um and people were mad at her video when she did at the time. So I just, you know, mentioned that people were mad when she did that video at the time. And someone who often leaves racist comments in my feed, you know, did another image of like a tap dancing person because the accusation is I'm tap dancing for white people. And as if white liberals aren't like furious with people like me all the time, but whatever. It is not that I don't know there's not black commentators, black conservative commentators, by the way, who go out there and say stuff to just appeal and get clicks or whatever. But I've been saying the same stuff before I was getting any clicks, and sometimes I don't get clicks. So it's just like I just say what I want to say, and if there's not an audience for it, I guess there's just not an audience for it. But you know, I haven't tailored myself for my audience at any point of time. So it might be someone else's story, but it's not mine. But I'm like, okay, for people who didn't know that my sister would be called a racist for this kind of comment, just FYI, here's another person in this video, in this comment section, where I point out the racism someone else is leaving more racism. So I screenshot his comment, made a post about it, and then I just blocked him because that's the only time he really comes in to engage, is to leave like tap dancing coon comments anyway. So and then he's like I'm gonna keep leaving this. I'm like, no, you're not. and then it's like, okay, y'all ain't gonna just leave comments like that for my baby sister, okay? Like, I know I posted her video, but y'all ain't gonna be just leaving all kinds of comments about my baby sister, okay? No, we're not gonna do that. We're not gonna do that. So anyway, yeah, I get negative stuff sometimes, and I just want to let people know and be aware of some of this evil that's out in the world and mentalities that are out in the world. But that doesn't mean that I don't see positive comments and appreciate the positivity and so on. So thank you. I know I say it every day here. Maybe I should make more posts about it on Facebook and so on. But I certainly say I appreciate you guys every day. Every day I'm live anyway. And you guys can also check out different merch and stuff at the site. As usual, you guys can check out my different books that I have, like Say Your Fear or How to Overcome a Spirit of Fear. And, you know, some of my nonfiction books. I mean, my fiction books, sorry. Would it be something if this was nonfiction? But it's fiction. But The Color of God's Eye, Song on the Devil's Lips. Those are like historical fiction fantasies. Think like X-Men meets American Civil War. Really cool books. So, anyway, since I guess I start off talking about the subject of race before we jump into the detransition story, which I will get to and we'll read this article. And good stuff. But I saw this video on TikTok. There was a congresswoman who shared it, and then I saw it on X. But it's pretty wild. People just saying all kinds of stuff, like they're supposed to be the tolerant side. But if you don't act in a way that they feel that you're supposed to act, you get called all kinds of words. So here we go.
Fucking predators, fuck you. Get the fuck.
Language, by the way. I'm sorry. The warning.
Fuck out of here! Fucking away from me! Fucking predator! Back up! Fuck you! Back up! What the fuck are you gonna do? Fuck you! Oh, I'm cooking. I don't have a gun, bitch.
Yeah, families should be ripped apart. That's kind of our energy. What? Like we should rip people apart from their families.
Are you a man?
Wow.
Wow, is that a question?
Wow.
Okay.
By the way, that was not a question. That's you can tell that's a dude.
Ripping people from their family. Does that feel good?
Fucking house nigga in there.
Sir, I need to move
Fucking house nigga working for the fucking KKK. What the fuck's wrong with you people?
Why are you calling a woman a man?
Sir,
I mean, what kind of a guy does that?
fucking house nigga, bitch. Go look for your fucking slave.
A warning for what, sir? A warning for what?
Warning to quit following our vehicle.
Because?
Because we're conducting law enforcement operations.
Yes, and we're allowed to film you doing those law enforcement operations. We still have a First Amendment, sir. We are not impeding your operations. We're merely filming them.
And you are interfering with our operations. You do not continue to follow.
We're pressed.
We're pressed. We can follow you and film you.
We're pressed. We have a right to.
Are you trying to get rid of the First Amendment?
Yeah. So these people are impeding. Like they know they do not want ICE to be able to successfully carry out their missions. And you know what? Even the statute about like not being able to impede with their investigation, it also talks about like intimidation and stuff too. And I'm like, all these people like being up on the folks, these guys, instigating them. It's so insane. It's so crazy. And then it's bad enough because these people are mentally ill, apparently have nothing better to do with themselves. And this is how they feel virtuous, calling a black guy a house N-word. And they're like, how dare you call a woman a man? He's not a woman. He's not a woman. He's not a woman, man. So there's that. But he's like, what is wrong with you people? You blast that everywhere, how these people treat these folks. When you don't do what they want you to do, folks feel like they can talk to you any kind of way. These people who are supposed to be inclusive, who care about the other, who care about minorities, who care about the marginalized, they don't like the fact that so many ICE agents are people of color. Like ProPublica posted information about some of the people who were involved in the Alex Pretty shooting, and at least 2 of them were Hispanic. You know, a lot of these people involved in law enforcement are people of color, which brings me to something else that bothered me today. I don't have a clip of it. I know I said I didn't care about the politicians and not the politicians, but the celebrities and stuff at the Grammys the other day, but I did see something today that annoyed me. I don't have a video pulled up right now. I mean, I could post a video about it later. But Keith Lee, I don't know if you guys know Keith Lee, but Keith Lee is a big food critic, not like a professional food critic or something, but he did videos on TikTok. At first, he would just get food. He would sit in a Paw Patrol chair, and he would record, and he would talk about food, and his channel just really blew up. It blew up to the point where if Keith Lee, he shows up to a place and he likes the food, there's gonna be a line out the door. And Keith Lee will show up. He'll give like big tips to the staff, you know, giving people money to go get the food. And his life has really been changed. And he's been invited to different award shows and has a lot of celebrity. And he'll always be like, God's amazing. God just did all this. I haven't really changed. God's amazing. God's amazing. God is so good, etc., etc. So he was being asked by maybe Entertainment Tonight, I think it was, or at least that was on their channel, about, you know, what he does and his career, and they're saying God's amazing, and uh you know and they asked him like how fame changed you or whatever, and they were like, we haven't really changed, etc., blah blah blah. And then they asked like, okay, what's good food to get tonight, like after the Grammys, like what should we get, we're here in LA, what should we get? Okay. And he goes on a rant saying any place with Spanish food, any place with Spanish food. And then he says, bleep ice, like the F word. And then I don't know if he immediately said it afterwards or that's how Entertainment Tonight edited it, but it was like, bleep ice, God is amazing. Like how he like ended it. Now, if you want your brand to be bleep ice, God is amazing, I don't think that's a great brand. Especially if you want God to really be glorified and lifted high. That's not appropriate. That's not an appropriate way to uplift the name of Jesus, to uplift God, to testify. It's just really, really inappropriate. And if you want to keep making about Keith Lee, you keep making about Keith Lee, but not appropriate. So there's that. Another thing that's really bizarre, they asked you, okay, where's a good spot to get food after Grammys? Now I just told you, this man can say this food is really good and it'll change that restaurant's life. You'll get all these customers and people be introduced to all this great food or whatever. Now maybe there's well, I don't know. LA is a big place. Maybe there's places that are like really, really amazing that have a lot of clientele that don't need that sort of I don't know, push to survive. But maybe there's like small spots that are struggling, that could have really used a Keith Lee boost if he's I don't know how much he's eaten in LA or not. So maybe he didn't have a specific place in mind. But if he was aware of some kind of specific place in mind that he's been to in LA, he could have plugged them, and then they could have just got off the chain busy. So there was an opportunity where Keith Lee could have participated and did what he usually does, that has blessed so many lives, touched so many lives, and really made him super famous. And he opted to make it political instead. And him saying like, go eat Spanish food, go eat whatever. Does he know how many people of different ethnic backgrounds like work for ICE? Again, I just mentioned that some people who were involved in the Alex Preddy situation were Hispanic. So you could support those communities, which, by the way, Hispanics voted for Trump in the last election. So if you want to go ahead and support those businesses, that's cool. But just know that doesn't mean that they're against legal immigration and they're not against border enforcement. And it was, Border Patrol who were involved in the Alex Preddy situation, but it was, I keep mentioning that there's people who are different influencers who don't normally dab in politics, who are speaking out about different stuff, and it is annoying to a lot of different people. Also, he said Spanish food, but there's kind of a difference when it comes to like Spanish versus like what you consider Mexican food. So I'm not even exactly positive what exactly he was meaning. But anyway, it's too bad. It's too bad. I bet a lot of these internet celebrities who were speaking out about this issue, they've seen maybe the kid with the hat, And they of course have seen probably videos of Renee Good and Alex Preddy, but I don't know how many people actually could have like a 10-minute conversation that's competent about this issue. But I really Keith Lee's built his platform. He could use his platform to do whatever he wants, and I think at the end of the day, something like this isn't going to break Keith Lee. I know some people started to unfollow Keith Lee, but he has such an enormous presence that it's not going to be that much of a dent. And um, and he's someone who gives a lot of money away. So I don't think something like this is if I said something and there was huge outrage that it's going to make him stop or anything like that. I'm not mentioning this just cancel him. I'm just a little annoyed and I guess disappointed. I don't know what his feelings about law enforcement in general are, but just from a lot of people want to talk about caring for the stranger as it talks about in the Bible and stuff, but you're still supposed to follow the laws of the land. Like people can't just come in and then disobey the laws of the land. And then people don't want to talk about Romans 13 when it talks about the law. So and the rulers of authority and so on. Like the government has the authority to keep the law here. If you really broke down, if someone said, I want to get rid of ICE, I want to defund ICE out or whatever. Okay, do you agree that we should have borders? A lot of people don't think we should have borders. But there's a lot of people who would say, yeah, we should have borders. Okay, what about people who come in illegally? Do you think that people should not be able to do that? Do you think we should be able to enforce the borders at all? Because Donald Trump didn't do something like incredibly amazing. There wasn't like some kind of new I don't know, cyber wall, some kind of Iron Man type of wall that was built out of nanotechnology that just sprung up overnight that keeps people from like being able to scale the border wall or come in. There's not like some kind of Godzilla creature in the Rio Grande stopping people from coming over. There's nothing like astronomical that the Trump administration has done to stop all of the people flooding the border, like you saw people flooding the border under the Biden administration. The difference is the attitude as far as what's going to happen when you come. They don't have the mentality that we're just going to be able to stay and do any old kind of thing. That's what one reason why people would rush the border before the election and stuff, because they were hoping to get in and before there was a change of hands as far as the way of doing things. So it is just really about the attitude that we're not going to allow you to continue breaking the law. You're not going to take advantage of us anymore. So people know that they're going to be sent back. People are less likely to take that journey. People are less likely to pay coyotes to get their children over here on this very dangerous journey. But people don't want to care about that. They only see this kind of propaganda stuff. And I'm not saying that everything that people see is propaganda, but a lot of the ways that information is presented to people is in a propaganda sort of way. And a lot of the information is false. And I don't totally blame people for being tricked, but it just feels so 2020 to me, I guess. I saw a video today about there was a black woman complaining about people talking about getting rid of ICE. And she said she understood because that's how she believed the propaganda in 2020 about trying to defund the police. She saw all the rhetoric, all the videos that people kept playing over and over again. And I guess she wasn't seeing kind of the negative stuff that was happening as a result to it. But there was so much rhetoric about how evil the police were that she believed, like the hyper-inflated numbers. She probably believed that hundreds of unarmed black people, or maybe thousands of unarmed black people, are being killed by police, like, because that was the sort of world that people were painting. And so she said what changed her mind about the police is that she eventually needed the police. she eventually needed to call them for a situation. So she started like changing her mind, like, oh, you know what, we actually really do need law enforcement. So these high profile celebrities and so on, I think her video she was talking about Kerry Washington. Kerry Washington, she was in the TV show Scandal. she did the movie Django. She does a lot of stuff. But she was encouraging people to call their senators and Congress people to try to get them to not fund ICE and stuff or whatever. And so she was responding to Kerry Washington and talking about how privileged these people are and stuff to not feel that they need law enforcement and stuff, and that she used to have a mentality of not of we should get rid of ICE and whatever, but eventually you might need them. So it's too bad. Someone said ICE doesn't seem to be abiding by the law, though. You're gonna have to be specific about what way you think they're not abiding by the law. I'm not going to make an argument that every law enforcement officer always abides by the law, but that's why you have certain processes to make sure that they're doing what they're supposed to do. You investigate, maybe you fire them. Sometimes they go to jail. But a lot of people not liking how they're doing their job isn't the same as them doing things that are illegal. Like, I don't know, resisting arrest is illegal. For example, trying to obstruct them from doing their lawful duty is not legal. Speaking of people who are dumb and engaging in propaganda, I saw this video of Miss Crockett, who is foolishly running for Senate. But she invoked the Haitian horse story. People know that's not real, right? By now? Do we not know that?
And the final point that I typically make is around understanding the root causes of migration. If people will remember, there were a lot of people that said that Vice President Harris was the border czar, and that wasn't really her title, but she was given some responsibilities as it relates to the border, and it was more so to understand root causes of migration. So the example that I usually use specifically in Texas is when the Haitians showed up at our border, there were these images of officers on horseback that were beating Haitians back into the water. And I was like, no one ever asked the question of why are the Haitians showing up at our border? And I said, if they would have asked that question, they would have found out that their government had been overthrown and that it was gang members that were running their country. And the final point that I typically make.
They weren't whipping migrants. I know she says a lot of dumb stuff, but I don't know. I guess part of me assume it's an act. It could be an act right now, but why would you bring this up unless you were stupid? I'm a little floored. I was on. I just assumed a lot of her vibrato and dumb stuff that she says is just kind of her acting out. Is she stupid? I didn't know. This was always dumb. But those are split reins. They weren't whipping migrants with the split reins from the horses. And I mean, shame on the Biden administration for like putting that out in the atmosphere or adhering to that sort of propaganda. And they're like, we're gonna investigate this. They even like retired the horses for the meantime. And I'm like, y'all fired the horses off of propaganda? Like they can't do the horses? Okay. Yeah, they weren't whipping migrants. Jeez. Someone said trying to enter homes without warrants and making threats of violence, etc. That's what they're doing illegally. Can you give me I guess, specific incidents of cases with particular people that they were going to go capture and were trying to enter homes without um, warrants. I know people think that, like in the case of like we talked about the 5-year-old and the father who was picked up the other day, and there was a judge who complained about administrative warrants not being enough, which isn't the case. And other administrations have repeatedly used administrative warrants. Now, as far as if those are good enough to go into people's houses and stuff is another question. But in that particular case, the father was actually picked up on the street. They didn't like go into the home and stuff. And of course, the mother wouldn't accept the son, and so the father wanted the son to go with him, and that's why they were detained together. But yeah, you're gonna have to look at conduct of I guess each case you want to look at if you've got something specific in mind, and we can analyze each detail and see if they acted appropriately. But the job of what Border Patrol actually does, and ICE, I do support thoroughly. Probably with more fervence than the administration, because I I think he's a lot more lax on the maybe lax is a good word, but I kind of feel like you're not supposed to be over here. Okay, bye bye, gone. Oh, um, someone's. Yeah, I just have to search YouTube for countless videos. Um, yeah, if you make a claim, you can I'm talking. Someone on YouTube is saying this stuff. If you have a specific claim that you're making, you can provide specific evidence, and we can go over it. Anyway, let's jump to the detransitioner story. So I'm glad that we're finally at this point here where people are getting some kind of justice for this. And I think in this kind of case, especially being in New York, I suppose, um, that you'll really see a turn. And the Washington Post reported today that there was a major organization that came out against transitioning and doing surgeries and stuff for minors, and that they should wait till they're older because benefits don't that could they're just evidence isn't just there to support that it's a good thing right now to outweigh the harm that it could actually cause. So Detransitioner wins $2 million against New York doctors who push double mastectomy. A 22-year-old woman who identified as a boy in her teen years won a $2 million decision in a landmark lawsuit against New York doctors accused of pushing a double mastectomy on her when she was a minor. Fox Varian had the life-altering surgery when she was just 16 years old, getting approval from a psychologist and a surgeon, both whom a jury found liable of medical malpractice on January 30th. The Epoch Times reported Varian, now 22, considered a detransitioner, was awarded $1.6 million for past and future pain and suffering, an additional $400,000 for future medical expenses in the first transitioner malpractice lawsuit in the nation to go to trial and win. Good. Psychologist Kenneth Einhorn and surgeon Simon Chin were held responsible in Westchester County Supreme Court in White Plains for ignoring standards of care and procedural guardrails by pressuring the minor into addressing gender dysphoria with permanent surgery, and the jury decided. Lawyers from Varian pointed the finger at Einhorn, saying he drove the train and was putting the idea in Fox's head that she needed to change her gender with surgery, according to the report. Varian's mother, Claire Deacon, testified that she was against the surgery, but considered considered it out of fear for her daughter would commit suicide, according to the outlet. Which, by the way, that's Chloe Cole's parents, for example. You know, she had her breasts removed at maybe she was 15, had a double mastectomy. Her and the doctors were telling her parents, like, do you want a live son or do you want a dead daughter? That's the kind of rhetoric that they push in the trans community to try to guilt parents into going along with the surgery, and people don't want their children to kill themselves, take their own lives, so they go along with it. And it obviously leads to irreversible damage, irreversible harm. But that's not a an out there phrase. That's something that people mention over and over again. This man was just so empathic and pushing that I felt like, I'm sorry, emphatic and pushing that I felt like there was no good decision, Deacon told the Epoch Times. I think it was a scare tactic. I don't believe it was malice. I think he believed that he was saying in what he was saying, but he was very, very wrong, she said. The so-called top surgery left the girl physically ill and deeply unhappy, she said in court papers reported by the Epoch Times, and which have since been sealed. The jury was not asked to rule in the ethics of gender-related surgical procedures for minors, but instead whether the medical professionals took appropriate steps before suggesting the threshold crossing measure. Lawyers in Inhorn and Chin argued that Varian lived allegedly happily as a male for several years after the 2019 surgery before filing the lawsuit in 2023. The further claimed Varian first came to them using male pronouns, verbally identified as trans male, and that she presented the idea for chest surgery. The doctors should have ensured Varian did not have other psychological conditions such as depression, ADHD, autism, or body dysmorphia before suggesting the surgery, her lawyers argued, according to the National Review. The trial comes nearly 1 year after President Trump began restricting gender-based medical interventions for minors with gender dysphoria. All told, 28 detransitioner lawsuits are now in different stages of legal proceedings across the U.S. So I assume there's going to be more money awarded, and as more, I mean, because a lot of doctors, they get a lot of money for doing these particular surgeries, but it's not just these surgeries. They are creating big pharma slaves, because there's a lot of medical difficulties that go along with transitioning, and a lot of upkeep, and you doing all these kinds of things to your body that is just not supposed to be. So I'm glad to see something like that. It's sad she'll never get her, natural breasts back. So that's terrible. And if she was taking hormones and stuff, her voice is probably changed forever. But man, I remember just a couple years ago talking about this stuff and how hostile the world was when you push back against the trans stuff. And Abigail Schreier, she wrote the book Irreversible Damage, because there were parents who didn't know how to deal with their kids being indoctrinated, and they're like, I know they're not really trans, I know they're not, but they go to college or whatever, and they get these friend groups, and they feel like this is who they are, that they want to chop off their breasts and do all this kind of different stuff. And I know that's not actually them. I don't know what else to do. And parents were like coming to Abigail Schreier. She ended up, doing the reports. She ended up taking their stories and doing all this research and so on. And people were so angry about it. She once did a speech about this question that she's asked like all the time. And the question is, how does it feel to be so hated? And it was such a great speech, by the way. She gave it at some college. I read the whole thing a couple of years ago on a live, and just deciding, even though the whole world's basically against you, that you're standing up for just seeing the truth. Like, if that's what's going to make you a martyr, you just stand up and say the right thing anyway, and have that kind of bravery and courage to just stand up and say the right and true thing anyway. That's what she did. And people despised her for it. And there was a book, When Harry Became Sally, and that was banned on Amazon. I don't know if it's still banned on Amazon, but that was like a real people were banning the book, and people were so upset about the book. And Chad Felix Green, he's someone who struggled with, and still struggles with, gender dysphoria, but he said that book actually really comforted him, because while he still struggles with gender dysphoria and he lives his life as a gay man and stuff, he understands basically how to deal with those emotions, rather than going to the point of, let me go carve up my body. That's not a real way to actually deal with what I'm dealing with. It doesn't actually change anything. So I'm glad there. I saw so many videos and testimonies of people who were fast tracked in, like, oh, I feel comfortable with my body. They go down like I don't know, Tumblr hole or something, or Reddit, or some kind of social media spiral, YouTube, watching all these kind of stories about transitioning. They self-diagnose, like, okay, maybe I'm trans. They could call Planned Parenthood and get hormones and stuff, and they go fast track to like getting their breasts cut off and stuff. And then not too long after that, it's like, oh my gosh, I made some kind of terrible mistake. And I know there's people who go through this stuff also for years, but for the past couple of years, there has been a lot of fast tracking for this stuff. So the UK has decided to pump the brakes on this stuff. It looks like the US is beginning to catch up. But think about like how things were just a couple years ago. Like Hershey's did some kind of commercial a couple years ago with a trans person who online, they think they were from Canada, but they were saying stuff like, we have to make it so the TERFs, talking about the feminists who speak up against the trans stuff, that they're just so ostracized that they're afraid to even say anything. When you had Dylan Mulvaney warning people like, oh, well, one day, when this anti-trans stuff isn't so tolerated, do you really want that stuff to be out there? Like, kind of doing the veil, the thinly veiled threat stuff. That's where the attitudes were. And some people were doing their threats so thinly veiled. Some of them were just like outright aggressive toward folks. I've had so many like aggressive threats and just language as well. One time I was on a live, and someone who we were talking about pronouns and other stuff like that, and I said that I wouldn't refer to a man who's actually a man as a woman. And then the trans woman was so upset by that he just started calling me a dog the whole time, and none of his allies cared about that and chastise him for just calling me a dog repeatedly over and over and over again, because he didn't like that I wouldn't call him a woman. And I'm like, that's insane. I'm telling you where I stand on my ethics on the issue. You believe it's wrong to call people things that they don't want to be called, how they don't identify. And but no one was to call him out for calling me a dog repeatedly. Like, he was really aggressive. He was also a Satanist too, on a side note. But it was just wild how aggressive this stuff was. But we've seen the pendulum swing. There's obviously been a big change, and I think in a couple years we're gonna really look back and say, man, what is with this Frankenstein stuff? A lot of people were bullies and monsters, how they conducted themselves and the sort of things that they advocated for. And it is really bizarre how many people obviously knew that it was a bad idea but went along with it because it was just social conditioning and social pressure. I've never been one to be like, social pressure, let me reevaluate my view. Like, no, it's like, I mean, you should think about your view and analyze like if it's right or if it's wrong or whatever. But you shouldn't just change your mind because everyone else is going a particular way and you just want to be comfortable not in the hot seat. there was one time I was with politically minded folks. I was at a political event actually, and there was something in the news. And it just kind of popped off, and people were very mad at something that Trump had said, and there was something. It was involving something with some kind of racial tone or whatever. He wasn't saying something racist, but there were people really upset about it. So I just started trying to like explain the situation, and everybody else just wanted to condemn him. And I'm just trying to explain like what's going on, and they're like, this own person, you know, who's like in my circle or whatever, like they don't even agree with you. And then I got real mad. I'm like, I don't care if they don't agree with me. I'm like, this is my opinion. Like, don't you ever try to use that. I'm like, I'm telling you what's going on. You're like, I'm not capitulating to anybody. Like, this is my opinion. So I'm glad we're on a better turn from this stuff. Anyway, Washington Post, as I said, ended up writing an article, and I haven't went through it. I just saw it before I kind of went live. First major medical group opposes gender transition surgeries for youth. American Society of Plastic Surgeons and Doctors delay gender-related surgeries until age 19, citing insufficient evidence that benefits outweigh the risk. Now, there's even like young women, like the particular woman that I mentioned who was self-diagnosed, and I think was self-diagnosing that they were trans, getting the hormones from Planned Parenthood and chopping off her breasts. I think all that happened within like 6 months, and this is a grown woman. And there are other detransitioners that I follow who were grown women who weren't minors, who self-diagnosed, went that route, and then at first, they're into it, and having the testosterone can make, people feel, the women who are taking it feel good and stuff, but eventually that high sort of falls off. And there's one person that I followed who was telling her story, and she was a singer. And the thing that really frightened her was when she was singing one day and she was on testosterone, and then she couldn't hit the high note quite like how she used to hit the high note. So it really dawned on her that she was really changing her voice, and she wasn't going to be like the same person. Now she could hit some lower notes that she couldn't hit before. And you could say that that's pretty silly. If you know you're going to take testosterone, it's going to change your voice. Well, there's a difference between doing all this stuff kind of in theory and then having to live out the consequences of your actions. So she began to kind of change her tune and ended up detransitioning, and is an active participant and speaking for detransitioners, and working with last I heard, working with organizations that were suing these different groups. But as someone who does sing, that really did hit me, the idea of just losing something that is so personal like that, like your voice. I've seen other detransitioners talk about how one of the things that they used to hate the most when they were dealing with body dysmorphia, with kind of body issues and stuff, was they hated the sound of their voice and they wanted it to be more masculine. In one person on YouTube, after they went ahead and went on testosterone and stuff, and their voice changed, they said that's the thing that they miss the most now, is how they used to sound. And you just don't know what you'll miss. Like, the grass seems greener on the other side. And these people are monsters for just pushing this on these kids for all these years, saying crazy stuff like, oh, if they have to go through puberty, that's torture. It's just how their body operates. It's a natural thing. A lot of these people will grow out of these feelings. It is uncomfortable just being a normal person going through puberty, and like everybody goes through being uncomfortable with their body. That doesn't mean that you're actually a boy or you're actually a girl. It's just life. Like it is the most normal thing in the world, growing up and being uncomfortable with your body. I saw a video today of the guy from Hunger Games, who played Finnick. Finnick is he had like a trident, and he showed up in Catching Fire, and he was with Annie and stuff. He was also in a movie where he's like a paraplegic with the girl from Game of Thrones. I can't think of what other movies he's been in, but he was talking about how he doesn't really like watching himself because he doesn't like how he looks, or has always had images, like problems with how he looks and stuff. And he said maybe it was just like from growing up, like having like a really late puberty. But he started talking about how he was a kid, and they were in PE class, and he was the only person who couldn't do a pull up, and how that affected him. I'm like, this guy has muscles for days. Like, if you don't know who I'm talking about, like just go watch Finnick. Go watch a clip of Finnick in the Hunger series, and you're like, that guy has an issue with his body. And so he was talking about like his physique. He was just talking about just watching his face and different facial features and stuff, and like different issues. And he's like, and in a part of an industry where they're always like judging every little thing. Now that I can understand. And Taylor Lautner, who was in Twilight, he's not fit and buff like he used to be during that era. But he talked about different issues that he'd have to go through after, folks who were constantly judging his body, and it wasn't like tip top shape, like still had more things to say about his body and how that made him depressed and other stuff like that. So, the most normal thing in the world, especially as you're growing up, is people talking about your body and being uncomfortable with your body. Like, I didn't like to change in the woman's locker room. When I was in high school, I would go in the bathroom stall. I didn't get over that until I was like older. That doesn't mean that you're not who you actually are, and that chopping off your body parts is going to change that. So, yeah, these people were sick for pushing all this stuff, and a lot of these people have different other issues that have led to their gender dysphoria, like sexual abuse and other things like that. There was a piece that was in the Free Press a couple years ago. We talked about it at the time, but there was a whistleblower who was concerned. It was detailing. There's even like people who have like violent sexual things in their history, and they still are like, okay to transition them when there's other things like going on. So this has been a really dirty industry for a long time that has not put the care of the patients first. A lot of it is pushed by ideology, and it's just really fringe Frankenstein type of science and not healthcare. And I'm glad that there is pushback against this finally. And there absolutely should be. There absolutely should be. Anyway, that's all I got for you guys today. Though I will quickly say Don Lemon is getting on my nerves. He said something about like the police come like arresting him, how they want to intimidate you, and I'm just like, bruh, you said the point of protest was to traumatize people. I don't know how his cases are gonna go. I wouldn't assume that he's gonna get. I don't know. I guess I'm pessimistic about it, but I think just like I said, people aren't coming across the border because they know basically that the laws will be enforced, and that's enough to kind of deter people from even doing it. I think there needs to be some kind of justice for not this nonsense going on. Unfortunately, during the BLM time, a lot of like protesters or whatever was just released, even when they were arrested. It didn't really pay much penalties or whatever. It's not okay what Don Lemon did. It is not okay what those protesters did. And Nicki Minaj the other day said, if you're a Democrat if you're a Christian Democrat, like why would you support them? Like they don't care about them invading your churches. Like they see how this just kind of shows how they see you. And I'm not into that rhetoric of you can't be a Christian and a Democrat. Like I know we see things differently. We should debate how we see things politically. Because I think there's an issue with like we could share the same values, but while you say like, oh, we're supposed to care for the poor, and your goal is to, okay, well, we'll have make the government do it. I'm like, okay, well, that's not actually how it's supposed to be. You're supposed to go do these charitable things yourself and not kind of try to pass it off to the government and stuff. So, but we can have those conversations. I just think you have like a kind of wrong application of where your heart is at. But I wouldn't go as far to say that I don't think you're a Christian or something like that. I guess it would depend on what other things we may disagree on. But if it's something along those lines, like, I can understand why you're voting Democrat, but I think you're in error. But we cannot have this kind of nonsense in people's churches. This should not be encouraged. This should not be repeated. And whether you're going by the FACE Act or the conspiracy against rights, these people have to face some kind of consequences for their actions. And if someone says, Don Lemon didn't do anything wrong, at least ask them, do they think the protesters did anything wrong, and go from there. Because he definitely at least did something wrong. If you would have the conversation about did he do something that's illegal, which I think there's a case that he did something that was illegal, and the grand jury felt that way too. But him just kind of flaunting like, I don't care, I didn't do anything wrong, oh, I'm not worried at all, blah blah blah. He's just so confident. It's so cocky and just zero remorse. And it's annoying for sure. But I don't want to encourage bad behavior. That's one of the reasons why I'm such a stickler on the border. I don't want to encourage bad behavior to continue the lawlessness. So your kids afraid that their parents are going to be killed. People do go into churches to kill church members. It has happened repeatedly. It has happened recently. So it's not cool how Don Lemon and all these people are acting. Anyway, thank you guys for joining me today. You guys can go to blacktnews.com, check it for content, the website, articles, reviews, etc. If you like what I do, please consider leaving a donation on the website because it does cost a stream. Right by side, all the good stuff, guys get support. I very much appreciate you guys. You guys can check out different merchants available at blacktnews.com. Go ahead and do that. God bless you guys, and I will see you on tomorrow.